Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over a new poll in the state of Michigan that gives insight into the governor's race in Michigan, as well as part of the poll that also shows what the Senate race is currently looking like. In a hypothetical three-way race, a statewide poll shows Democrat Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson with a commanding lead over independent Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, 42% to 21%. Republican Congressman John James also outpaced Duggan with 30% support. Duggan is running as an independent, hoping to attract voters from both major parties. The poll, conducted by Target Insight on behalf of MIRS News, has a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. It was taken between March 3rd and March 6th and involved 600 voters, of whom 41% were Republican and 41% Democrat. Another 18% consider themselves to be independent. This poll shows Benson ahead, and Duggan still has a big hill to climb, said Ed Sarpolis, executive director of Target Insight, who conducted the poll. The poll also shows Benson with a big lead in the Democratic primary for governor. The sampling involved 344 Democratic voters, with a margin of error of plus or minus 5.7 points. Secretary of State Michigan Jocelyn Benson had 55%. Lieutenant Governor of Michigan Garland Gilchrist had 12%. Attorney General of Michigan Dana Nessel had 12%. Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson with 3%, and some other candidate 19% or unsure 19%. Now here's the results of three different hypothetical races for Senate. When it's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she has 42%. Republican former Congressman Mike Rogers, who is the nominee in 2024, has 41%. So in this one, Gretchen Whitmer, the Democrat, leads by 1 point, with other candidate or unsure at 17%. So well within the margin of error on this one. When it's Democrat Congresswoman Haley Stevens and Republican former Congressman Mike Rogers, Rogers leads here 41% to 35%. It seems in these first two matchups, Rogers' support is strong around 41%, 23% though unsure or some other candidate. This is the one that's the most likely matchup as of right now. Democrat and former U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, he has 46%. Republican former Congressman Mike Rogers, 44%. Some other candidate or undecided, unsure, 11%. This one's very important because right now, based on the polling data, this is the most likely matchup of Buttigieg versus Rogers. This is the one that seems to be happening right now. The poll also measured the favorability of the candidates so far. Whitmer has said she has no plans to run for Senate and she is term limited as governor. Gretchen Whitmer has a 52% favorability rating to 43% unfavorable. Mike Rogers, 23% favorable, 46% unfavorable. 31% never heard of him, even though he was just the nominee for Senate on the Republican side. Jocelyn Benson, 49% favorable, 35% unfavorable, 16% never heard of. John James, almost a perfect split, 33% favorable, 34% unfavorable, 34% never heard of or no opinion. Haley Stevens, 29% favorable, 10% unfavorable, 62% never heard of. Mike Duggan, 42% favorable, 16% unfavorable, 42% never heard of. In another category, the poll took a sampling of 344 Democratic voters for the Senate primary. The poll has a margin of error of 5.7%. In this one, Governor Gretchen Whitmer had 43%, Haley Stevens had 4%, former U.S. Secretary Pete Buttigieg 27%, some other candidate or undecided, unsure 26%. This goes to show that if Gretchen Whitmer did run for Senate, which she said she's not going to, if she did, she would start out as the clear favorite to win the Democratic primary, but after her, Pete Buttigieg in second at 27% seems to be the most likely choice on the Democratic side right now. On the Republican primary, the poll sampled 336 Republican voters with a margin of error of 5.7 points. Former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox has 5%. Congressman John James has 57%. Michigan State Senate Minority Leader Ari Nesbitt 13%. Oakland County businessman Perry Johnson 1%. Other candidate unsure 23%. Again, this is for the Republican primary for governor. Sarpola said the poll shows Nesbitt is beginning to get some traction, outdoing Michael Cox, who's been in the political arena for decades. So that's the poll. Obviously, these races are going to be very, very important. Looking back just at some brief election history, we did just see the presidential race, of course, in Michigan. Donald Trump won the state by 1.4%. The Senate race, we saw a very close matchup where Lisa Slotkin defeated Mike Rogers by 0.3%. It's looking like Rogers is going to be the Republican nominee again in 2026, so we'll see how that situation unfolds. Looking at some other past races, we can see Michigan, the presidential level, voted for Trump by 1.4 in 2024. 2020, it voted for Biden by 2.8. Looking at the Senate races, in 2024, Slotkin won by 0.34. In 2020, the last time there was a Senate race there, Peters won by 1.7 against John James. In 2018, Stabenow defeated James by 6.5. The governor's races, the last time there was a governor's race was 2022. This was Gretchen Whitmer. She won by 10.5% in 2022. In 2018, she was elected by 9.6%. So at the statewide level, Michigan has gone back and forth between being a lean Democratic state and a likely Democratic state, whereas at the presidential level, it's voted for Donald Trump 2 out of the last 3 elections. But at the state level, it seems to be a lean to likely Democratic state, although 2024, with Donald Trump on top of the ballot, was a tilt Democratic state. So maybe there's potential in 2026 for the Republicans to break through and win a statewide race in Michigan. But right now, I start the races off like this. The Senate race in Michigan, I start that out as a lean Democratic win. This means I have it over 1% margin of victory, but under 5% margin of victory. I have Michigan starting out as lean Democrat. That's where I would have it beginning. On the governor's map, I would have the governor's race right now. It's interesting because Mike Duggan being a third-party candidate really complicates things. We're going to have to wait and see how that unfolds. But I would start this race out probably as likely Democratic for now. It seems in the poll, Mike Duggan is pulling a good number of both Democrats and Republicans away. And for the Republicans to really capitalize off that, he essentially needs to be pulling away more Democrats and almost no Republicans for the Republican to really win. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. Michigan is somewhere around a 5-point lead for the Democrats right now. You could argue even like lean Democrat, but I would start it out as likely Democrat for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, click subscribe, share with all your friends and family. Leave a comment below telling me your thoughts, and I hope to see you in a future video.